Beloved, hear me. December is not the end of the year. It is the stage God chooses to reveal that he is still the master of time, the keeper of seasons, and the changer of stories. Many people look at the calendar and conclude that the year is over. But God looks at the same calendar and says, I only need one moment to change everything. There are people listening to me right now who have prayed, fasted, believed, and waited. You entered this year with expectations, and now you are wondering, Lord, is there still time for you to do it? I announce to you by the Spirit, yes, because the God of the 11th hour does not come early and he does not come late. He comes when his appearing will bring him the most glory. December is a prophetic month. It is the month where God compresses seasons, collapses delays, and rewrites destinies with speed. There are miracles that only happen when men think that time is up. There are doors that open only when people say it is impossible. There are breakthroughs that God reserves until the final hour so that no man will share his glory. This December, I speak over you. May the God who lifted Joseph from the prison in one night, may the God who remembered Hannah after years of tears, may the God who restored Job after months of loss show up for you in the 11th hour. Get ready, because this month, what you waited for in 11 months, he will deliver in one moment. This is the hour where destiny shifts, where long-standing battles bow, and where forgotten prayers rise again before the throne. The God of the 11th hour is not just coming. He is arriving with power, with mercy, and with sudden visitation. When we speak about the God of the 11th hour, we are not talking about a God who responds late. We are talking about a God who operates on a superior timetable. A God who is never behind schedule, even when man thinks time has run out. One of the greatest revelations a believer must understand is that divine timing is not measured by calendars, clocks, or human deadlines. God does not rush because we panic, and he does not delay because we worry. His timing is perfect because his understanding is infinite and his purposes are eternal. Many times in life, we find ourselves looking at the months as they pass, counting our efforts, evaluating our progress, and quietly concluding, maybe this year is not my year. But God often waits until what men call the final hour to show that he alone is the Alpha and the Omega, the one who starts a story and the one who finishes it gloriously. The 11th hour is God's stage to display his supremacy. It is the time when your strength has failed, when your connections have dried up, when your plans have collapsed, and all you have left is your faith. God waits until that moment because he knows that when the miracle comes, you will not credit your effort, your wisdom, or your network. You will lift your hands and say, this is the Lord's doing. The 11th hour is his hour because it silences the voices of doubt and magnifies the voice of God. It is the hour where testimonies carry weight because they come after seasons of waiting, crying, and standing. There are things God will not do for you in the first hour of the year, not because he cannot, but because the value of the miracle is tied to the journey. Sometimes heaven waits until every other option is exhausted so that the intervention will mark you forever. When God comes at the 11th hour, he does not just bring an answer, he brings a revelation of his nature. He teaches you that delay does not equal abandonment. He proves that waiting is not a sign of weakness, but a preparation for divine encounters. He shows you that patience is not punishment, but a spiritual posture that attracts uncommon results. Often, the 11th hour shows up right when you are ready to quit. It shows up after you have prayed until your words feel empty, after you have believed until your faith feels tired, after you have hoped until your heart feels numb. That exact moment when you feel like giving up is when heaven whispers, I am still God. The 11th hour teaches trust at a deeper level. It trains your spirit to depend on God beyond emotions, beyond timing, beyond outcomes. It is in that hour that God proves he was never late. He was simply aligning the circumstances to give you a miracle that would lift you, teach you, and reveal him. Every great testimony you admire carries an 11th hour fingerprint. People who rise suddenly, people who receive answers at the edge of despair, people who experience breakthroughs just when it seemed too late. These are the people who have encountered the God of the final hour. And when he steps in at that hour, he does not come with small answers. He comes with restoration, with speed, with compensation. He collapses years of stagnation in moments. He turns nights of crying into mornings of celebration. He makes your story so beautiful that those who once pitied you begin to wonder what kind of God you serve. This is why the believer must never conclude their story prematurely. As long as God is involved, the end is never the end. The 11th hour is still God's hour, and he can do in one moment what your strength could not achieve in years. When December arrives, many people look at it merely as the closing chapter of a year. But spiritually, December carries a unique prophetic grace that cannot be found in any other month. It is the month where heaven releases answers with unusual speed, where long-standing expectations suddenly receive divine attention, and where the God who watches over times and seasons deposits miracles that remind his children that he remains faithful until the very end. There is something about the final month that reveals the heart of God. He delights in proving that what could not happen in 11 months can still manifest within days, within hours, even within moments. December confronts our doubts, challenges our timelines, and announces that God has not forgotten. God has not ignored your tears, and God has not closed the book of your destiny. Every December carries the atmosphere of divine visitation because it is the month where God crowns the year with his goodness. There is a spiritual principle that governs the end of seasons. God often keeps the most surprising testimonies for the last part of the journey. Just as a master artist signs his name only after completing his masterpiece, God often puts his greatest blessings at the end of the year, sealing it with favor, mercy, and restoration. Many people assume that if something has not happened by November, then it cannot happen at all. But God intentionally waits until December to reveal his glory in a manner that shocks those who wrote you off and even surprises you. He compresses time, overturns verdicts, releases answers, and restores hope in a way that shows that he alone determines when your blessing arrives. December carries the grace of divine remembrance. Heaven begins to revisit your prayers, your sacrifices, your sowing, your service, and every tear you shed quietly before God. The things that seemed ignored suddenly begin to rise before the throne of God like incense. Just as God remembered Hannah after years of waiting, just as God remembered Noah after months of being locked in the ark, just as God remembered Joseph in the prison and orchestrated his lifting in one night, so does December become a month where remembrance breaks forth. Heaven begins to call your name in rooms you have never entered, in places you have never stood, and in the hearts of people you never met. Divine remembrance is not just God thinking of you, it is God taking action on your behalf. December also carries the grace for divine settlement. There are breakthroughs God reserves for this month so he can close your year with testimony. Problems that followed you from January suddenly meet the fire of heaven in December. Battles that refused to bow for months begin to collapse under the weight of divine intervention. Blessings that were delayed for reasons you did not understand suddenly accelerate and arrive with a speed that shocks your spirit. It is not because December has magical power. It is because God chooses the end of the year to prove that nothing is too late for him. In this month, God often orchestrates encounters, unexpected opportunities, sudden open doors, prophetic connections, and instructions that unlock miracles. December is a month where one phone call can change your entire year. One email can rewrite your story. One encounter can open a new destiny. God moves with precision in this season because he intends to finish what he started in your life. The blessing of December is not random. It is intentional. It is heaven's seal upon the year. And as you step into this month, you must align your heart with expectation. Do not let the calendar intimidate you. Do not let the passing of time weaken your faith. God has a track record of stepping into the final moments and turning impossibility into testimony. December is a month of divine visitations. And if you position your faith correctly, you will see answers that will make you say, truly, the end of a thing can be better than its beginning. When we talk about the God of the 11th hour, rewarding those who remain faithful, we are touching one of the deepest spiritual laws that governs divine intervention. God does not only see your prayers, he measures your consistency. He does not only hear your words, he watches your posture. Many people begin the year with passion, expectation, and faith, but somewhere in the journey, after disappointments, delays, and unanswered questions, the fire begins to die. Yet there are those who, even when nothing around them is hanging, stay with God. They keep praying when it seems pointless, keep worshiping when it feels dry, keep serving when no one notices, keep believing when their situation doesn't improve. These are the individuals who qualify for 11 2-hour miracles because heaven honors persistence. Faith that endures is different from faith that starts strong. Anybody can believe when life is easy, but the real test of faith is what remains when time challenges your conviction. God watches how you handle silence. He watches how you handle waiting. He watches how you react when others receive their breakthroughs and you are still standing without your own. Faithfulness is not proven in moments of celebration. It is proven in seasons of delay. And the God of the 11th hour loves to reward those who refuse to give up, those who stay planted even when the soil is dry, those who tell themselves, even if he doesn't show up yet, I know he is still God. There is something powerful about staying faithful until the last moment. It is a sign that your trust is not in timing, but in God himself. Many people unknowingly disqualify themselves from the final hour blessing because they walk away too early. They stop believing right when heaven is preparing the answer. They stop praying right when breakthrough is closest. They give up at the 10th hour, unaware that the 11th hour carries the miracle they have been crying for. The enemy loves to discourage people near the finish line because he knows that persistence is the final key to manifestation. But those who keep standing, who keep speaking the word, who keep their heart aligned, are the ones who will see God show up in extraordinary ways. Faithfulness is also a spiritual fragrance. It rises before God like incense. Even when months pass without visible results, not a single moment of consistency is wasted. God stores every tear, records every prayer, remembers every sacrifice. In the invisible realm, faithfulness accumulates like spiritual weight, and when the scale tilts, the miracle breaks forth suddenly. This is why some breakthroughs come so dramatically, because the weight of long-term faithfulness finally meets the timing of God, and what you have waited for erupts into reality. The 11th hour miracle is often a reward, not just a rescue. It is God saying, I saw your endurance. I saw your loyalty. I saw your commitment, and now I will honor it. When God rewards faithfulness, he does not give a small answer. He gives a testimony that justifies the years of waiting. He blesses you in a way that makes the pain make sense, the silence meaningful, the patience valuable. His reward arrives in a form that reveals he was paying attention the entire time. Sometimes he waits until the last hour because he wants the reward to speak loudly. If he answered early, people might think it was coincidence or human effort. But when he answers late, everyone will know it was God. And so, if you are still pressing, still believing, still holding on, even when everything seems contrary, you should know this: you are not wasting time. You are not being ignored. You are positioning yourself for a type of miracle only the faithful can receive. The God of the 11th hour does not overlook those who stood with him through the storms of the year. When he finally shows up, he comes with a reward that wipes tears, erases shame, and announces that faithfulness is never in vain. Delay is one of the most misunderstood experiences in the life of a believer. Many interpret delay as abandonment, as punishment, or as a sign that God is not listening. But spiritual maturity teaches us that delay is often divine preparation, a strategy of heaven to produce a harvest far greater than what you initially prayed for. When God delays, it is never because he is confused, powerless, or indifferent. He delays because he is aligning people, events, resources, timing, and seasons in a way that the final outcome will not only bless you, but also reveal his sovereignty. Delay is not denial. Sometimes delay is the womb in which greatness is formed. There are blessings you are asking God for today that he could give you instantly, but he withholds them because the version of you right now cannot handle the weight of what you are asking. Sometimes the miracle is ready, but the person who will receive it is not. God uses delay to refine your character, strengthen your endurance, deepen your wisdom, and prepare you emotionally and spiritually for the responsibility attached to the blessing. If God gives a blessing too early, the blessing can become a burden. So he waits not because he wants to frustrate you, but because he wants to secure your future. Delay becomes a training ground where God shapes you into the kind of vessel that can sustain the testimony when it finally comes. When heaven delays, it is also because God is working behind the scenes in ways you cannot see. You may think nothing is happening simply because you see no change physically, but God is orchestrating things spiritually. Some of the greatest miracles require divine coordination. God may be moving someone from one city to another, touching the heart of someone who will help you, creating a vacancy you will fill, shifting circumstances in your favor, or preparing a platform that will announce you. You are praying for the fruit, but God is preparing the ground. You are praying for manifestation, but God is arranging the environment that will sustain the blessing. What looks like delay is actually God ensuring that when your miracle arrives, nothing and no one can stop it. There are also delays that are divine protection. Sometimes God withholds what you are praying for because giving it too soon would expose you to battles you are not prepared to fight. God sees the traps you cannot see, the motives people hide, and the dangers around opportunities that look harmless. He delays to shield you. He delays to protect you. He delays to keep you from stepping into something premature. When you look back later, you will realize that some delays were salvation in disguise. But the most powerful truth about delay is this: God often waits until the 11th hour to reveal that his power is not limited by time. When he steps in at the final moment, he destroys the lie that time controls him. He shows that calendars do not intimidate him. He proves that he does not need a whole year to change your life. He only needs a single moment. The 11th hour becomes the stage where God turns delay into divine drama, a testimony that reveals his intentionality. When the miracle finally comes, the I am impact is greater because the journey was long. The glory is heavier because the waiting was intense. The celebration is louder because the breakthrough was delayed. And when God finally answers, he does not answer according to the amount of time you waited. He answers according to the greatness of his power. This is why many 11th hour miracles come with restoration. God gives you more than you lost, more than you imagined, more than you prayed for. Delay becomes the setup for acceleration. Delay becomes the soil for glory. Delay becomes the evidence that God was preparing something better than what you were expecting. Delay is not denial. It is divine timing in disguise. One of the mysteries of the 11th hour is that God does not always change situations by adding more effort to your life. Sometimes he changes everything by giving you a single divine instruction. Throughout scripture and throughout the experiences of believers everywhere, we see a pattern. When God wants to shift a destiny, open a door, or release a breakthrough, he often does it through a simple, clear, supernatural instruction. Years of waiting can be overturned by one moment of obedience. Everything you have been trying to accomplish with your strength, your intelligence, and your planning can suddenly open when God speaks a direction that carries the weight of his authority. Divine instructions are not ordinary words. They are keys. And when God hands you a key, no door has the power to remain closed. There are seasons where you have prayed, fasted, labored, and pushed with all your might, yet nothing seems to change. You feel stuck, stagnant, or locked out of opportunities that others seem to access easily. It is in such seasons that God introduces the mystery of divine direction. A single instruction can accomplish what your struggle could not. God may tell you, move, stay, call this person, apply this, sow that seed, forgive, change this habit, start this project, shut that door, or take that step. These instructions may not make sense to your logical mind, but they make perfect sense to the spirit, because God sees the entire picture while you see only a moment. When God gives an instruction, he is not merely advising you, he is revealing where your miracle has been hidden. Many breakthroughs are tied to a specific action at a specific time. Obedience becomes the bridge between your expectation and your manifestation. The 11th hour is not always about waiting for God to do something. Sometimes it is about listening for what he wants you to do. Your next level is not always locked behind the enemy's resistance. Sometimes it is locked behind your hesitation to obey an instruction that seems too small, too unusual, or too inconvenient. Yet, that instruction may be the one step that collapses years of delay. God often hides power inside simplicity. He tells a widow to borrow vessels, and that one instruction preserves her future. He tells Naaman to wash in a river, and that simple act heals what no physician could cure. He tells Peter to cast the net again in the same place he failed, and that obedience produces a harvest that breaks the net. The miracle was never in the place, it was in the instruction. When God gives a direction, he attaches his divine backing to it. What seems ordinary becomes supernatural. What seems small becomes powerful. What seems insignificant becomes destiny changing. The 11th hour instruction often comes when you are exhausted, discouraged, or numb. It often comes when you have nothing left but faith. God waits until that moment because it is in your weakness that his strength is made perfect. When you obey in that state, it is no longer your confidence that produces the result. It is God's sovereignty. That is why 11th hour instructions carry unusual grace. They come wrapped in a supernatural urgency that unlocks doors you could not open in your own power. Obedience also accelerates time. What should take years can take weeks. What should take months can take days. God uses instructions to compress seasons. He uses directions to activate speed. When you obey, heaven responds instantly because obedience is a language that the realm of the spirit recognizes. It signals alignment. It announces readiness. It declares that you have matured enough to manage the blessing you have been praying for. A single divine instruction can restore what you lost, position you for favor, connect you to destiny helpers, and bring you into alignment with God's will for your life. It can take you from obscurity to visibility, from stagnation to motion, from confusion to clarity, from dryness to abundance. And that is why at the 11th hour, God does not always send a miracle. Sometimes he sends an instruction that becomes the miracle. When you receive and obey that instruction, doors you have knocked on for years suddenly swing open. Barriers fall, delays break, opportunities emerge. What you tried to do with years of effort, God accomplishes through one moment of obedience. This is the power of divine instruction. One step can change everything. When God shows up at the 11th hour, he does not simply give you a small relief or a partial answer. He brings a transformation so dramatic that it compresses years of pain into moments of celebration. There is something unique about the way God restores. Humans can repair, replace, or compensate, but only God can redeem time. Only God can step into your past, present, and future at once and rewrite the story in such a way that what was once a source of shame becomes a testimony of his power. When God decides that your season of sorrow has expired, he does not take you through a slow process of recovery. He lifts you with speed, restores you with precision, and blesses you with abundance. The God of the 11th hour specializes in turning long-standing battles into sudden victories. There are situations that have lingered for so long that you may have grown accustomed to them. Cycles of delay, repeated disappointment, financial dryness, emotional heaviness, and silent battles you cannot explain. These situations sometimes remain not because God is absent, but because he is preparing a breakthrough so complete that the very memory of the struggle will become fuel for worship. When God shows up in his 11th hour dimension, he does not merely touch the surface, he reaches into the foundation of the issue and corrects what men cannot see. He rebuilds what was broken, restores what was stolen, heals what was wounded, and resurrects what seemed finished. And he does it in a way that leaves no trace of the former pain except gratitude. One of the signatures of an 11th hour miracle is suddenness. It comes unannounced. It comes unexpectedly. It comes at a time when your strength is gone, when your faith feels tired, when your hands feel weak. God waits until that moment because he wants you to know that the lifting is not your doing, it is his intervention. When he steps in, he moves with a speed that does not make sense. Years of stagnation break in a single encounter. Doors you have knocked on for a decade open in a day. Opportunities you were denied before suddenly search for you. When the 11th hour God arrives, he compresses what should take years into moments because he is not limited by time the way men are. Another signature of this kind of miracle is restoration with interest. God never restores at the same level you lost. He adds increase. When he restored Job, he gave him double. When he restored the Israelites, he gave them wealth they did not work for. When he restored Joseph, he lifted him from prison to palace in one night. This is how the G-O-D of the 11th hour works. He does not only give back what was taken, he adds a portion that proves his goodness. Your tears are never wasted. Your waiting is never ignored. And your prayers are never forgotten. God collects them, stores them, and pours the reward into your life all at once when the appointed moment comes. When God steps into a life at the last moment, he also silences the voices that mocked you. The same people who doubted your future will witness your rising. Those who laughed at your story will see the glory of God upon your life. The God of the 11th hour does not just bless you, he vindicates you. He proves that your trust in him was not foolish. He proves that your patience was not in vain. He proves that your journey, no matter how painful, has always been under his supervision. And this is why you must never give up. Even when the year is ending, even when the calendar is closing, even when your heart feels weary, because the God you serve is a God who saves the best for last. He is a God who turns years of tears into moments of joy. He is a God who takes the broken pieces of your story and turns them into a masterpiece. And when he shows up in your life at the 11th hour, the testimony he gives you will not only lift you, it will announce his faithfulness to everyone who hears it. As we come to the end of this message, let your heart receive this truth. God is not limited by time. He is the God of the 11th hour, and what seems impossible to man is always possible with him. The delays you have endured, the prayers that felt unanswered, the tears that seemed forgotten, none of these escape his attention. Every season, every moment, Every struggle has been recorded in heaven, and the God who watches over time is perfectly positioned to intervene at just the right moment. The 11th hour is his stage to demonstrate his glory, to reward faithfulness, to restore what was lost, and to compress years of waiting into moments of celebration. This December, I declare over you, do not fear the late hour, do not despise the small beginning, and do not doubt the unseen hand of God. Your miracle is not defined by the months that have passed, but by the God who is coming. He is aligning circumstances, preparing instructions, orchestrating opportunities, and mobilizing his power to step into your story at the perfect moment. The same God who lifted Joseph, remembered Hannah, restored Job, and turned the night into morning is ready to show up in your life. He will open doors, release favor, bring divine acceleration, and bless you in a way that overwhelms expectation. Faith is not just believing when everything looks good. Faith is standing firm when it feels like nothing is happening. Faithfulness is not measured by how long you wait, but by your perseverance in the wait. And when the God of the 11th hour finally steps in, he does not merely answer your prayer. He transforms your destiny. He silences every doubt, overwhelms every opposition, and announces that his power is unmatched and his timing flawless. So today, lift your eyes and prepare your heart. Release the burden of past disappointment, let go of fear, and step into expectation. Your 11th hour miracle. God will not come early. He will not come late. He will come at the appointed time with power, glory, and sudden favor. What seemed impossible for 11 months will be accomplished in one moment. What seemed delayed will now be delivered. What seemed forgotten will now be celebrated. Receive this word, declare it over your life, and position yourself to see the supernatural in action. The God of the 11th hour is ready to show up this December. Your breakthrough, restoration, and testimony are not just coming, they are already on their way. Prepare to celebrate, for the best of your story is about to unfold, and heaven itself will testify that the God who watches over time is faithful, mighty, and true. Amen.